Lauren White, a wealthy white woman in her 30s, lived in an exclusive neighborhood in the heart of Atlanta. Her mornings were always the same. A brisk walk with her golden retriever, Daisy, through the neatly manicured streets of Oakwood Estates, a gated community known for its predominantly white, affluent residents. This particular morning, as she sipped on her almond milk latte and strolled with Daisy, something caught her eye. A tall, athletic black man in jogging clothes was coming down the sidewalk. Lauren's heart raced, her mind immediately jumping to the worst conclusions. She clutched her phone tightly and tugged on Daisy's leash. The man, oblivious to her discomfort, continued his run, focused on his fitness tracker. Who is he? Lauren thought, glancing nervously at the man. He doesn't belong here. In reality, the jogger was Dr. Marcus Owens, a well-known surgeon at Atlanta General Hospital. He had recently moved into a nearby neighborhood, enjoying the quiet escape from the bustling city center. But as he neared Lauren's vicinity, he noticed her rigid stance and quickened steps. Lauren, her thoughts clouded by years of ingrained racial bias, decided she couldn't ignore this threat. Her mind raced with media stories about crime and strangers who didn't belong in certain neighborhoods. Within minutes, she was dialing 911, explaining breathlessly to the operator that a suspicious black man was lurking in her neighborhood. Her voice was urgent and dripping with fear, even though Marcus had done nothing but jog down the same streets that hundreds of residents used every day. She ended the call, feeling a sense of triumph. In her mind, she had acted to protect her community. Unaware of the unfolding drama, Marcus continued his jog, enjoying the cool morning air and the peacefulness of the suburb. Little did he know, his routine workout was about to turn into a life-altering ordeal. The Atlanta police were dispatched immediately after Lauren's call, with sirens blaring through the quiet streets. Marcus, still oblivious to what awaited him, slowed his pace as he neared the community park, thinking about his long shift ahead at the hospital. As he jogged through the park, the warm morning sun filtered through the trees, creating a dappled pattern on the path. He took a deep breath, appreciating the peacefulness that often eluded him in the hectic world of medicine. Just as he rounded a bend, he spotted flashing blue and red lights in the distance. At first, he thought they were responding to a nearby incident, but as he got closer, he realized they were coming toward him. The police car screeched to a halt, and two officers stepped out, their expressions serious. "Excuse me, sir," one of the officers called out. "Can we talk to you for a moment?" Marcus immediately sensed something was off. He slowed to a stop, wiping sweat from his brow. "Sure, what's going on?" The second officer approached, scanning his surroundings as he spoke. "We received a call about a suspicious person in the area. Can we see some identification?" "Suspicious? I'm just out for a jog," Marcus replied, bewildered. He reached for his wallet, glancing at the onlookers who had gathered, including Lauren, who stood a few yards away, a smug smile on her face as she watched the scene unfold. "Can you just show us your ID?" the first officer repeated, his tone now more authoritative. Marcus pulled out his driver's license and handed it over. "I live nearby," he said, trying to maintain his composure. "I'm a doctor at Atlanta General Hospital." The officers exchanged glances but continued questioning him, the situation becoming increasingly frustrating for Marcus. As he explained his presence in the area, he could see Lauren stepping closer, her arms crossed, still harboring a sense of misplaced triumph. "I called because I saw you loitering around here," Lauren interjected, her voice dripping with an insidious air of superiority. "You looked out of place." Marcus felt a wave of anger wash over him. "I'm not loitering. I'm jogging, something I've done every morning since I moved here. Just because I'm black doesn't mean I don't belong." The officers looked uncomfortable but continued to process the situation. Marcus felt a knot tightening in his stomach as the reality of racial profiling settled in. He glanced at Lauren, whose smile faded as the reality of her actions dawned on her. "I'm sorry, sir," one of the officers said finally, realizing the gravity of the misunderstanding. "We just have to follow up on the call." After what felt like an eternity, the officer handed back Marcus's ID. "Thank you for your patience. We're sorry for the inconvenience." "Yeah, well, it's hard to stay patient when you're being treated like a criminal," Marcus retorted, his frustration boiling over. As the police car drove away, Lauren stood frozen, her mind racing with the consequences of her actions. She had called the police on a man who was doing nothing wrong. The moment of satisfaction she had felt earlier now felt hollow and shameful. The air hung heavy with tension as Marcus resumed his jog, trying to shake off the unsettling encounter. He could still feel the eyes of the onlookers, whispering among themselves. His heart raced, not from the run, but from the indignation of being targeted simply because of the color of his skin. Meanwhile, Lauren felt an internal conflict brewing within her. As she returned home, she replayed the confrontation over and over in her mind. The adrenaline from her initial fear was now replaced by guilt and embarrassment. She tried to justify her actions, telling herself she was only looking out for her community, but deep down, she knew that wasn't the truth. As she entered her pristine home, the comfort of her luxury surroundings felt tainted. She paced around her kitchen, replaying the image of Marcus's calm demeanor despite the injustice he faced. Moments later, she heard a whimper from the living room. Daisy, her golden retriever, was lying on the floor, her eyes dull and distant. Panic surged through Lauren as she rushed over to her dog. "Daisy, what's wrong?" she asked, kneeling beside her. Daisy wasn't moving. Lauren's heart sank as she checked her pulse, feeling the weak thump beneath her fingers. Realizing her dog might be in serious trouble, she scrambled for her phone and dialed her veterinarian. "Hello, this is Dr. Thompson's office. How can I help you?" the receptionist answered. "My dog, she's unresponsive. Please, I need help," Lauren cried, her voice rising in panic. "Calm down, Mom. Can you bring her in? It sounds urgent," the receptionist responded, but Lauren was in no state to think straight. "Daisy, please wake up," she shouted, shaking the dog gently. Nothing. In that moment, Lauren's world shifted. She thought about the black doctor she had just encountered. He was a physician. Perhaps he could help. Her pride battled with her desperation. A few minutes ago, she had called the police on him, but now, she felt the fear of losing her pet. Maybe he can help, she whispered to herself, reluctantly reaching for her phone again. She searched for Marcus's contact number online, her heart racing at the thought of reaching out to him after what had just happened. The decision felt monumental. Her mind was still clouded with the prejudices that had led her to call the police in the first place. But Daisy's whimpers pulled her back to reality. With trembling hands, she sent a text message to Marcus. "Dr. Owens, I know this is sudden, but I need your help. My dog is really sick. Please." The response came almost immediately. "Where are you? I can help." As Marcus returned home from his jog, the adrenaline from the earlier encounter still coursed through him. The sun was beginning to rise higher in the sky, but the weight of the morning's events left him feeling drained. Just as he began to wind down, his phone buzzed with an incoming message. He was taken aback to see Lauren's name flashing on the screen. What could she possibly want now? He wondered. After everything that had happened, he felt a mix of frustration and concern as he read her message. "Where are you? I can help," he texted back, not entirely sure if he wanted to engage with her. He hadn't even had time to process his feelings about their previous encounter, yet here she was reaching out in need. Moments later, she replied with her address. It was just a few blocks away, and after a brief pause filled with uncertainty, he made the decision to go. He reminded himself of his duty as a doctor and the importance of saving lives, even if the person needing help had wronged him. As he approached her home, he noticed the meticulously trimmed hedges and the grandeur of the house. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Lauren opened it, her face pale and eyes wide with worry. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice shaky. "Daisy is in the living room." As Marcus followed her inside, he noticed the tension in the air. Lauren had gone from a privileged woman full of contempt to a frantic pet owner, her earlier arrogance replaced with a sense of vulnerability. He stepped into the living room, where Daisy lay on the floor, barely conscious. "All right, let's see what's going on," he said, kneeling beside the dog. He gently examined Daisy, checking her pulse and breathing. "She's not responding," Lauren whispered, her voice breaking as tears welled in her eyes. "Okay, we need to stay calm," Marcus replied, focusing on Daisy. "I need some water and a clean cloth." Lauren rushed to fetch the items, her heart racing as she realized she had no idea how to handle the situation. The woman who had once called the police on him was now placing her trust in him, and he could sense her inner turmoil. Once he had the water and cloth, he began to work on Daisy, keeping his voice steady as he reassured Lauren. She's stable for now, but we need to get her to a vet as soon as possible. I can't believe this is happening, Lauren murmured, her earlier disdain for Marcus all but forgotten. I'm so sorry, I thought you were a threat. Marcus looked up, locking eyes with her. This isn't about that right now. Daisy needs help. The irony of the situation weighed heavily on him. He had gone from being a victim of racial profiling to becoming the savior of the woman who had made the call. As they waited for the vet to arrive, Lauren sat on the floor beside Marcus, watching him work with her dog. I didn't mean to, she started, her voice trembling. It doesn't matter right now, he interrupted gently. What matters is Daisy. Minutes felt like hours as Marcus focused on stabilizing Daisy. With the vet's arrival imminent, he needed to keep the dog calm. He gently stroked Daisy's fur, whispering soothing words. Lauren hovered nearby, wringing her hands, her face a mix of anxiety and guilt. Dr. Owens, I don't know how to thank you, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't believe I called the police on you. Marcus paused, looking up from Daisy. You can start by acknowledging that what you did was wrong. Lauren nodded, her expression earnest. I realize that now. I acted out of fear and ignorance. I can't explain why I felt that way. It's shameful. Her eyes filled with tears, reflecting her inner turmoil. I've been so wrapped up in my own world that I didn't even consider the consequences of my actions. And now, my dog. Marcus nodded, understanding the depth of her conflict. It's a learning moment for both of us, I suppose. But right now, Daisy needs you to be strong. As they waited, the atmosphere shifted from hostility to a tense camaraderie. It was a delicate balance, and Marcus felt a sense of responsibility not only for Daisy but for helping Lauren confront the uncomfortable truth about her biases. I can't believe I let my prejudices cloud my judgment, she continued, her voice cracking. I never thought I was racist, but I can see how wrong I was. I thought I was protecting my community, but I was just being ignorant. Marcus kept his focus on the dog but felt the sincerity in her words. It's not easy to confront these things. It's often ingrained in us without our realizing it. Suddenly, Daisy whimpered, and both their heads snapped toward her. Stay with us, girl, Lauren pleaded, kneeling beside her dog. Just then, the doorbell rang, breaking the heavy silence that had enveloped them. Marcus stood up, glancing at Lauren. That must be the vet. Lauren hurried to the door, letting the veterinarian in. Dr. Hayes, a seasoned animal doctor, rushed in with her medical bag. What seems to be the problem? She asked, quickly assessing the situation. Marcus stepped aside, allowing Dr. Hayes to take over. She's unresponsive and seemed to have difficulty breathing, he explained, stepping back as the professionals took charge. The vet worked quickly, hooking Daisy up to an oxygen mask. As the seconds ticked by, Lauren stood beside Marcus, her heart racing. Is she going to be okay? Lauren asked, her voice trembling. Dr. Hayes looked up, assessing the situation. She's stable for now, but we need to get her to the clinic for further examination. She might be having an allergic reaction, possibly to something she ingested. Do you have any idea what she might have gotten into? No, she was just in the yard, Lauren replied, her voice shaking. I thought she was fine. She was running around like normal this morning. With the vet's careful guidance, they helped Daisy onto a stretcher. The atmosphere shifted from tense to urgent as they moved the dog to the car. Marcus could sense Lauren's despair, but he also saw a glimmer of determination in her eyes, a desire to make things right. As they loaded Daisy into the car, Lauren turned to Marcus. I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to learn. I want to understand why I reacted that way. Marcus hesitated, taken aback by her sincerity. It's a long journey, Lauren. Understanding your biases is just the first step. You'll need to take responsibility and actively seek to change your perspective. I'm ready to do that, she insisted, her voice steady. I don't want to be the person who judges others based on race or any other superficial factor. I want to become part of the solution, not the problem. The car ride to the veterinary clinic was filled with silence as Lauren and Marcus exchanged glances, both lost in thought. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of unease from the earlier encounter, yet he was increasingly aware of the vulnerability Lauren displayed now. She was no longer the confident woman who had called the police out of fear. She was a worried pet owner desperate for help. As they pulled into the clinic parking lot, the sun was beginning to dip low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the building. The veterinarian's team was waiting outside, ready to assist as they rushed Daisy into the clinic. Lauren's heart raced as she watched them take her dog away, but she turned to Marcus, seeking his comfort. Thank you for being here, Dr. Owens, she said, her voice trembling. I know this is all so messed up, but you saved my dog's life. Marcus looked at her, a complex mix of emotions churning inside him. You're welcome. But don't forget that you were the one who called the police on me. It's not that simple. I know, she replied softly, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'll never forget it. I have to live with that shame. But I can't just sit back and accept my ignorance anymore. In that moment, Marcus was struck by her vulnerability. He felt torn between his anger and his desire to help someone who was willing to change. Look, I can't pretend that what happened didn't happen. But if you genuinely want to learn, there are ways to do that. I will do anything, Lauren insisted, her eyes wide with sincerity. Just tell me what to do. As they stood outside the clinic, waiting for news, Marcus considered the possibility of a future where they could navigate this together. Perhaps even find a way to turn this incident into a learning opportunity for both of them. But he knew it would take time and effort on her part. Start by educating yourself on systemic racism and the experiences of people of color, he suggested. There are books, documentaries, and community organizations that focus on these issues. The first step is to listen, really listen, to the stories of those affected. I will. I promise, she said, determination evident in her voice. I'll find a way to use my privilege for good. Marcus nodded but remained cautious. It's one thing to say that, but it's another to act on it. You'll face resistance, and it may not always be comfortable. I can handle it, she insisted, wiping her tears. I have to do better, not just for myself but for others like you. I can't just stand by anymore. Just then, the door to the clinic opened, and Dr. Hayes emerged, her face serious. Daisy is stable but we need to keep her for observation overnight. She likely had an allergic reaction to something she ingested. We'll know more in the morning. Lauren let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding, a wave of relief washing over her. Thank you, Dr. Hayes, she said, stepping forward. You have no idea how much this means to me. Of course, the vet replied, a warm smile breaking through her professional demeanor. You're lucky to have someone like Dr. Owens here to help. Marcus felt a mix of pride and awkwardness at the compliment. He glanced at Lauren, who seemed momentarily at a loss for words. They both stood there, caught in a moment of vulnerability and realization. After the vet returned inside with Daisy, Marcus and Lauren found themselves alone in the parking lot, the sun setting behind the clinic, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Do you want to get a coffee or something while we wait? Lauren offered, trying to lighten the mood. Sure, Marcus replied hesitantly. He still felt conflicted but realized that they had both been brought together by an unexpected crisis. Maybe they could turn this situation into something more positive. As they drove to a nearby cafe, the conversation began tentatively, each person navigating their thoughts carefully. I never thought I would end up in this situation, Lauren confessed. It's like everything I believed has been challenged in the span of a single day. Life has a way of doing that, Marcus said. Sometimes it takes something drastic for us to really see the truth. They arrived at the cafe, a small, cozy spot filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. As they ordered, Marcus couldn't help but notice the shift in Lauren's demeanor. She was no longer the entitled woman he had encountered earlier. Instead, she seemed genuine, almost vulnerable. They found a table outside, where the conversation flowed more easily. Lauren shared stories of her childhood, her upbringing in a sheltered environment, and how her family had always encouraged her to be cautious around people who looked different. Growing up, I was never exposed to diversity, she admitted. It's embarrassing to think how much I've missed out on simply because I didn't step outside my bubble. Marcus listened intently, aware that her journey was just beginning. It's not too late to change. Acknowledging your privilege is a powerful first step. Suddenly, as they spoke, Marcus noticed that Lauren's expression shifted from reflective to alarmed. "What is it?" he asked, concern creeping into his voice. "My chest feels tight," Lauren said, clutching her side. "I don't know, I think I might be having a panic attack." "Breathe, Lauren," he instructed, his physician instincts kicking in. "Focus on your breathing. Inhale deeply through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth." But it was too late. Panic swept over her as she struggled to draw breath. Her face turned pale, and her hands shook violently. Marcus quickly assessed the situation, realizing she might be experiencing an allergic reaction to something she had consumed earlier, possibly even related to Daisy's condition. "We need to get you back to the clinic," he said urgently. He helped her up, supporting her as they rushed back to the car. "Stay with me, Lauren. Focus on my voice," he instructed, his heart racing as he pushed the car to its limits, speeding back to the clinic. The once calm evening was now filled with urgency as Marcus gripped the steering wheel tightly, navigating through traffic with a mix of adrenaline and concern. "Just breathe, Lauren. We're almost there," he urged, glancing at her. Her face was still pale, and he could see the fear in her eyes. Panic had gripped her, and he felt a surge of protectiveness for someone who had once been his antagonist. As they pulled into the parking lot, Marcus jumped out of the car, rushing to Lauren's side. He helped her out, supporting her as they made their way to the entrance of the clinic. The staff recognized the urgency of the situation and quickly moved to assist them, ushering them inside. "Help! She's having a reaction," Marcus shouted, his voice firm yet steady as they entered. Nurses rushed toward them, leading Lauren to an examination room. Marcus remained at her side, his medical training kicking in as he assessed her symptoms. "What did you eat today?" he asked, his tone calm but urgent. "I don't know. I had some salad at lunch, but it wasn't anything unusual," Lauren gasped, struggling to catch her breath. The nurses began to check her vitals, while Dr. Hayes emerged from the back, quickly evaluating the situation. "What's going on?" she asked, her demeanor shifting to that of a seasoned professional. "I think she's having an allergic reaction," Marcus explained. "She was fine until a few minutes ago, and then she just started panicking. I'm not sure what triggered it." Dr. Hayes moved swiftly, instructing the nurses to prepare an injection of epinephrine. "We need to act quickly," she said, her voice steady but urgent. As they worked, Marcus felt a mix of fear and determination. He had never seen Lauren in such a vulnerable state, and despite their rocky start, he couldn't let anything happen to her. "Lauren, listen to me," he said, looking her in the eye. "They are going to give you something that will help. Just focus on your breathing, alright? You're going to be okay." She nodded weakly, her gaze fixed on him as the nurses administered the injection. "I'm scared, Marcus," she admitted, tears filling her eyes. "I know," he replied softly, "but you're not alone. You're going to get through this." Moments later, the epinephrine began to take effect. Lauren's breathing steadied, and the color slowly returned to her cheeks. Dr. Hayes monitored her closely, nodding in approval. "That's it. Just keep breathing." As the tension in the room eased, Marcus felt a rush of relief wash over him. Despite everything that had transpired, they had both found themselves in a situation that had forged an unexpected bond between them. Once Lauren stabilized, Dr. Hayes stepped back to assess her condition. "We're going to keep you for a little while to monitor your reaction, but you should be alright," she said, giving Lauren a reassuring smile. "Thank you, Dr. Hayes," Lauren breathed, her voice still shaky. As the medical team prepared for observation, Marcus sat down beside her, relieved but still processing everything that had happened. He watched as she slowly regained her strength, her panic subsiding. "Why do you think this happened?" she asked, her voice softening. I've never had any allergies before. Stress can sometimes trigger physical reactions, especially in people who might be prone to anxiety, Marcus explained. This whole day has been incredibly overwhelming for you. It's understandable. Lauren nodded, looking down at her hands, still trembling. I can't believe I put us both in this situation. I was so focused on my own fears that I didn't consider how my actions might affect others. Marcus took a deep breath. It's a process, Lauren. You can't change overnight, but recognizing the need to change is the first step. I want to be better, she replied earnestly, her eyes meeting his. You've shown me that there's so much I need to learn, not just about myself but about the world around me. I want to understand the experiences of others, especially those who face prejudice daily. As they spoke, Marcus could see the sincerity in her eyes. The woman who had once stood against him was now expressing a desire for change. It was a profound transformation, and he felt a flicker of hope that maybe they could work together to bridge the gap between their worlds. The nurse entered, breaking their moment of reflection. Lauren, we're going to keep you here for a bit longer, but we'll move you to a more comfortable room shortly, she said, offering a kind smile. Thank you, Lauren replied, her voice stronger now. Once the nurse left, Marcus looked at Lauren, contemplating the delicate balance between their past and the potential for a new beginning. You know, sometimes it takes a traumatic experience to really open our eyes, he said cautiously. Maybe this could be a turning point for both of us. What do you mean? She asked, curious. I mean, this experience could serve as a foundation for us to learn from each other. It's not just about you understanding your biases, but also for me to understand how fear can influence people's actions, he explained. We could help others as well, maybe even start a conversation about these issues in the community. Lauren's eyes lit up with realization. You're right. If we can work through this together, we might be able to impact others in a positive way. As the hours passed in the clinic, Lauren began to feel more like herself again. The nurses moved her to a recovery room where she could rest comfortably. Marcus stayed by her side, engaging her in conversation as she reflected on the day's events. I can't stop thinking about how I almost lost Daisy, and how I treated you, she said, her voice filled with remorse. I was so wrapped up in my own fears and prejudices that I didn't even see you as a person. Fear can cloud judgment, Marcus replied, leaning back in his chair. But the important thing is that you're willing to confront it. Many people wouldn't take that step. Why do you think I reacted that way? She asked, genuinely curious. It's often what we're taught, he said thoughtfully. Society instills certain beliefs in us, and sometimes we don't even realize we're carrying those biases. It's not always intentional, but it still causes harm. Lauren nodded, absorbing his words. I want to understand that better. I want to break away from the mindset I've lived with for so long. Good. Start by listening to other stories, he advised. Attend community meetings, join workshops, and seek out diverse perspectives. Engage with people who have different experiences than you. I will, she promised, determination in her voice. I want to be an ally. I want to be better not just for myself but for others. They spent the rest of the evening discussing various ways she could get involved. Marcus could see her passion igniting as they spoke about local organizations focused on social justice, community outreach, and educational programs aimed at addressing systemic racism. This could be an opportunity for us to collaborate, Marcus suggested. Maybe we can organize an event to raise awareness in our community. I'd love that, Lauren exclaimed, her excitement palpable. If I can help change even one person's perspective, it'll all be worth it. As they mapped out ideas, Marcus felt a renewed sense of hope. The path ahead wouldn't be easy, but the potential for growth and understanding was immense. I'm proud of you for taking this step, Lauren, he said sincerely. It's not easy to confront our biases, but you're doing it. You're setting an example for others. Thank you, Marcus. I can't express how grateful I am for your support, especially after how I treated you, she replied, her gaze softening. In that moment, the air was charged with an unspoken understanding, a bridge forming between two individuals who had once stood on opposite sides of a divide. The following day, after a night of observation at the clinic, Lauren was finally discharged. As she stepped out into the warm Atlanta sun, a wave of relief washed over her. She felt like she had been given a second chance, not just for herself but for Daisy, who would be returning home soon. "Thank you for being here with me, Marcus," she said, her voice steady. "I'm ready to take the first steps toward making a change." "Just remember that it's a journey," Marcus cautioned gently. "You'll face challenges and setbacks, but that's part of the process." "I understand," Lauren replied, determination in her eyes. "And I'm committed to learning and growing from this experience." As they made their way to her car, Marcus noticed the tension in her shoulders easing. The events of the past few days had reshaped her perspective, and he could sense her readiness to embrace the work ahead. "I'll drive you to pick up Daisy," Marcus offered, his voice reassuring. "She's probably anxious to see you." Lauren smiled, grateful for his kindness. "Thank you. I can't wait to have her back." As they drove to the clinic, the conversation flowed easily. They discussed everything from local events to personal aspirations. Marcus found himself genuinely enjoying Lauren's company, appreciating her newfound perspective. Once they arrived at the clinic, the atmosphere was filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. As they walked through the doors, Lauren felt her heart race at the thought of seeing Daisy again. She was filled with guilt over the previous day's events, but also a renewed sense of purpose. Dr. Hayes greeted them warmly as they entered the waiting area. "I'm glad to see you both back," she said, smiling. "Daisy is doing much better. We've monitored her closely, and she's ready to go home." Lauren's eyes lit up with joy. "Really? Is she okay?" "She's stable, and we didn't find any serious underlying issues," Dr. Hayes replied, leading them to the back where Daisy was being kept. "Just a precautionary stay. We suspect she may have eaten something that triggered her allergic reaction, but she's going to be just fine." As they entered the examination room, Lauren spotted Daisy lying on a soft blanket, her tail wagging furiously as she caught sight of her owner. "Daisy!" Lauren cried, rushing to her side. Daisy jumped up, her energy infectious as she licked Lauren's face, the excitement palpable. "Oh, I missed you so much," Lauren said, laughing and crying at the same time. Marcus stood back, allowing the emotional reunion to unfold. He felt a swell of warmth watching Lauren embrace Daisy, the bond they shared evident. He realized that this moment wasn't just about the dog, it was about healing and transformation. "Remember to keep an eye on her diet from now on," Dr. Hayes advised, checking Daisy's vitals. "Make sure she doesn't eat anything that could trigger her allergies. And if you have any concerns, don't hesitate to reach out." "Thank you so much, Dr. Hayes," Lauren said, wiping her tears away. "You've been amazing." "Just doing my job," the veterinarian replied with a smile. "And don't forget to follow up in a week for another checkup." With Daisy safely in her arms, Lauren felt a rush of relief. "Let's get you home, girl," she whispered, her heart full as they exited the clinic. As they drove back to Lauren's house, Marcus reflected on the journey they had both taken in such a short time. The car was filled with the sound of Daisy's happy barks and the comforting warmth of their camaraderie. "I can't believe how quickly everything changed," Lauren said, glancing at Marcus. "Just a few days ago, I was so wrapped up in my own fears, and now you're taking steps toward understanding," Marcus finished for her. "It's a big leap, and you should be proud of yourself." "Thank you for being part of this," Lauren said earnestly. "I don't think I could have faced it alone." "Everyone needs someone to lean on during tough times," Marcus replied, pulling into her driveway. Once inside, Lauren set Daisy down, who immediately started exploring her familiar surroundings. "She's so happy to be home," Lauren said, watching her dog with affection. "Animals have an incredible way of grounding us," Marcus remarked, leaning against the wall. "They remind us of what's truly important." "Do you think there's a way to turn this experience into something bigger?" Lauren asked, her voice hopeful. "I want to share my story and help others see that change is possible." Marcus nodded, considering her words. "Absolutely. Your story could resonate with so many people. Perhaps we can organize an event focused on awareness and understanding, invite people to share their experiences and promote dialogue." I love that idea, she said, enthusiasm bubbling up within her. We could create a safe space for discussion and growth. I'll start researching local organizations that might want to collaborate. As the planning began, Marcus could see the fire igniting in her. It was a stark contrast to the woman he had met days ago, filled with fear and prejudice. Let's set up a meeting with a few community leaders, he suggested. We can brainstorm ways to get this off the ground. Lauren agreed, her energy palpable as she began jotting down ideas. The room buzzed with the excitement of possibilities, and Marcus felt a sense of purpose alongside her. Over the next few weeks, Marcus and Lauren worked tirelessly to organize the event. They reached out to community leaders, local activists, and organizations focused on social justice. Lauren dove into research, gathering materials and resources to help educate attendees on the importance of understanding and confronting bias. As the day of the event approached, anticipation hung in the air. They decided to host the gathering at a community center that could accommodate a diverse audience. With flyers distributed and social media buzzing, they were hopeful for a good turnout. I can't believe how far we've come since that day at the park, Lauren remarked one evening as they reviewed their final plans. I never imagined I'd be doing something like this, let alone with you. It's a testament to the power of change, Marcus said, smiling. We can all grow and learn, regardless of our past mistakes. The night before the event, Lauren felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She reached out to Marcus for reassurance. What if no one shows up? She worried. Even if just a few people come, it's still a step forward, he reassured her. Every voice matters, and your story can inspire others to think differently. As they finalized their preparations, Lauren felt gratitude wash over her. Thank you for believing in me, Marcus. I really couldn't have done this without your support. Thank you for taking this leap, he replied. It's inspiring to see you transform and become an advocate for change. The day of the event arrived, bright and sunny, and the community center was buzzing with activity. As people filtered in, Marcus and Lauren welcomed attendees, setting the tone for a day of learning and discussion. The room quickly filled with a diverse group of individuals, families, young adults, and community leaders, all eager to participate. Lauren took a deep breath, her heart racing with excitement. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here today, she began, her voice steady despite her nerves. Today is about sharing our experiences, learning from one another, and taking steps toward understanding and acceptance. Marcus watched as she spoke, her passion evident. The audience responded with enthusiasm, and Lauren felt a wave of confidence wash over her. Throughout the day, they facilitated discussions on various topics: the impact of bias, personal experiences with discrimination, and ways to foster inclusivity in their community. Each story shared was met with empathy and understanding, creating a supportive environment. At one point, Marcus stood up to share his own story, recounting his experience with Lauren in the park. I want to emphasize that we all have biases, but it's how we choose to confront them that matters, he said. It takes courage to acknowledge our mistakes and learn from them. The audience responded with nods of agreement, and Lauren felt a sense of unity forming among the attendees. By the end of the event, they had not only created a space for dialogue but had also fostered connections between individuals from different backgrounds. People exchanged contact information and expressed interest in forming a support network to continue the conversation. In the weeks following the event, the momentum continued to build. People who had attended reached out to Lauren and Marcus, eager to get involved and continue the dialogue about bias and understanding in their community. Lauren organized a follow-up meeting, inviting everyone to brainstorm ideas for future events and initiatives. The group decided to form a community coalition focused on education and awareness, ensuring that the conversation didn't end after just one event. As they gathered in the community center, Lauren felt a sense of pride. Look at what we've created together, she said, glancing around at the enthusiastic faces. This is just the beginning. Marcus stood beside her, proud of the transformation they had both undergone. We've started something meaningful, and it's only going to grow from here, he added, his voice filled with optimism. As they continued to plan and strategize, they recognized the importance of reaching out to schools, local businesses, and other community organizations to broaden their impact. They sought to educate young people and foster a generation that embraced diversity and empathy. Months passed, and the coalition began to make a noticeable difference in the community. Workshops were held regularly, and more people began to engage in conversations about race, bias, and inclusivity. One evening, as Lauren and Marcus sat in her living room reflecting on their progress, Lauren felt a sense of gratitude wash over her. "I can't believe how far we've come," she said, looking at Marcus. "It's incredible to see the change happening around us." "I think the real change started with you," Marcus replied, his tone sincere. "Your willingness to confront your fears and biases has inspired so many people." Lauren smiled, feeling a sense of accomplishment. "But I couldn't have done it without your support. You helped me see the importance of vulnerability and understanding." As they talked, Marcus realized how much he had grown through this journey as well. It wasn't just about helping Lauren, it was about fostering connection, compassion, and learning from each other's experiences. "Thank you for being my partner in this," Lauren said, her eyes sparkling with appreciation. Left double quotation mark.